SteamOS has been the secret formula to a console-like experience on a handheld gaming PC since the launch of Steam Deck. It really changed everything. It made it much more feasible to bring PC games with you on the go. Valve had promised from the start that SteamOS would be publicly available and not locked down to Steam Deck. And we're finally here. Not only did Valve release the OS for anybody to easily install SteamOS on their hardware, but we also have Lenovo with their officially Valve-backed Legion Go S. That means we can literally walk into a Best Buy and pick up a handheld gaming PC with SteamOS on it. And well, that's pretty incredible by itself, but the Legion Go S offers a whole lot more than just a big box store carrying a Linux device. The Legion Go S comes in 4 honestly confusing variants. There are 2 variations with Windows 11 pre-installed, and there's another 2 variants with SteamOS pre-installed. This gives us a price range between $600 and $900. The SteamOS versions are the new Z2 Go chipset with 16GB of RAM and 512GB of storage, and another SteamOS model with the older Z1 Extreme chipset, but with a whopping 32GB of RAM and 1TB of internal storage. They retail for $599 and $829 respectively. The Windows versions are a Z2 Go chipset with 32GB of RAM and 1TB of storage, while the other model is the Z1 Extreme chipset, also with 32GB of RAM and 1TB of storage. These Windows 11 editions are available for $729 and $899. I picked up the SteamOS Z2 Go model because I think it's the more enticing device out of the bunch. It's within the same price range as Valve's official Steam Deck, making it the only model from Lenovo that won't be asking you to stretch your budget farther than the cost of the highest tier Steam Deck. The Legion Go S offers some pretty interesting specs that differ pretty greatly from the Steam Deck. Mainly, the Legion Go S features an 8-inch 1200p IPS VRR screen that supports up to 120Hz. That's compared to the 7.4-inch 800p OLED HDR screen, which supports up to 90Hz on the Steam Deck. The Z2 Go chipset should also outpace the Steam Deck's chip, at least on paper. It beats the Steam Deck in both its new Zen 3 CPU and a greater number of RDNA 2 compute units. The Z2 Go is also capable of running at 40 watts compared to the Steam Deck's maximum of 15 watts. It puts the Legion Go S at an interesting in-between. At $600, it's poised to offer a more powerful chipset, higher wattage for more power-hungry games, and has a much more versatile and higher resolution display. Oh, and to make things a little bit muddier, the Windows version with the Z2 Go with 32GB of RAM and 1TB of storage is actually on sale at Best Buy right now for $599, making it the same price as this SteamOS model that we're looking at today. Confused yet? Granted, that is a sale and it's not a permanent price cut or anything, but still, we're just a few days after the launch of this brand new device, and the higher end model is already getting a pretty hefty sale. So caveat everything here with, the higher end model of the Legion Go S is on sale for a limited time, and that makes it a better value, but only for a limited time. Color-wise, this 16GB model comes only in Nebula, which I thought was a fancy way of saying black, but this definitely has a very strong hint of purple, and I really like the look of it a lot. The device is big but comfortable, with really great ergonomics. On the device itself, we've got 2 USB-C ports at the top. This is also where we'll find our power button, volume controls, and a 3.5mm headphone jack. At the bottom is where we'll find our microSD card slot. For the controls on the device, we have our analog triggers, which have a great travel distance, but we also have toggles on the back of the device to quickly change between analog triggers and hairline triggers. I think the only thing that's a little bit off-putting about the triggers is how the L1 and R1 buttons are just really thunky. If I was sitting next to somebody playing their Legion Go S on a plane and they're hitting L1 and R1 a lot, honestly I'd be pretty annoyed. The rest of the controls, luckily, are all very well refined and well balanced. The analog sticks are a good size and they have a great range of motion. The controllers are not detachable like the Legion Go, and Lenovo opted for a circular D-pad for the Go S this time around. I usually feel like I'm losing out with circular D-pads, but this one feels great. We do still have a touchpad on the Go S, but it's significantly smaller, and honestly, it's not very useful even navigating desktop mode. The screen is bright and vivid, and despite it not being an OLED, it's a great looking screen. The screen is something that I think just makes this device stand out so much more compared to a Steam Deck, or really any device on the market. First off, it's a native landscape display. This means we aren't sacrificing any GPU power or anything like that to have the screen rotated in software. So that also means that we shouldn't have any weird UI quirks when launching games. Second, this screen is bright and vivid, and at 1200p resolution, it may not be OLED, but this is a very fantastic looking display. This is pretty minor, but I think it's pretty cool. I really like that we've got the Steam logo on the dedicated Steam button. Although I'll caveat that with, I find the location of the Steam and settings buttons very conflicting. They're just too close to start and select, and they feel identical. I constantly am hitting the wrong button because they're all shaped the same. Great hardware means nothing without great software to accompany it, and Lenovo's team up with Valve means that software makes the Legion Go S shine. It's just SteamOS, and I mean that in the best way possible. It's the most streamlined setup that we can ask for. There's no Office 365 trials, and no need to have Microsoft Edge pushed down your throat. Just log into Steam, wait for some first-time setup, and that's literally it. We have our console-like experience front and center. And of course, just like on Steam Deck, we can escape hatch into desktop mode if you're somebody that likes to get into tweaking every aspect of your device. Desktop mode is where I like to do things like get the heroic game launcher installed for GOG and Epic Store games. It's also where you'll need to go to install EmuDeck for emulation. The biggest change from Steam Deck to the Legion Go S is that Valve now has updated the verbiage of their store. Instead of Steam Deck verified, we now have SteamOS verification. Steam Deck verification still exists, and we can still see the Steam Deck certification, but now we also have SteamOS verification, which is what Steam will default to on non-Steam Deck devices. It does seem that everything that's listed as Steam Deck verified will also be SteamOS verified, but it's not true the other way around. I think that SteamOS verification kind of just means, yeah, this game is gonna boot. But after the game starts, it's not like necessarily saying that the game is fully playable or anything like that. For example, Star Wars Outlaws is listed as unsupported on Steam Deck, but it is listed as supported by SteamOS. So while some games might be hit or miss, the hypothetical is pretty incredible. My Steam library of 309 games has 254 that are listed as SteamOS compatible. The partnership between Valve and Lenovo does seem to run pretty deep though. The device images throughout SteamOS are all Legion Go S branded, and when there's firmware updates in the last few days, it seems like at times they're specifically targeting the Legion Go S. SteamOS is not without some hitches though. Throughout my device setup, I did experience some occasional crashes where the device would just randomly reboot without any error messages. It hasn't been during gameplay, only during setup, so in reality, it's not like it's been very disruptive or anything, but still worth calling out. Also, the RGB ring around the analog sticks just kind of stopped working for me, and there doesn't seem to be any software level controls for this feature. I would expect that over the next several weeks, Valve and Lenovo will iron out some of these bugs, and we'll keep getting a more stable SteamOS experience. One of the standout SteamOS features that translate perfectly to the Legion Go S is the wake from sleep. I know it sounds stupid, but it's blazing fast, just like you'd expect from your console. If you've played around with any of the Windows handheld gaming PCs, you'll know that turning off your device with the sleep button just isn't quick at all. It takes a few seconds for the device to turn off. When you turn it back on, it's like a 50-50 if your game is even going to work or not. Benchmarks are the easiest comparison to make between devices, even though it's not exactly a representation of how games will perform. 3D Mark isn't supported on SteamOS, so we'll rely on the Cyberpunk benchmark test. It's pretty ironic what a mess that game was, and now we're using it for benchmarks. Kinda cool. Using the Steam Deck preset settings, we average just about 40 FPS. We can play around with settings like FrameGen and push Cyberpunk's benchmark test a little further, and with FrameGen turned on, we actually can boost the game to almost 58 FPS. Whether FrameGen is something that you can live with or not is up to you, but I think it's a good gauge for benchmarks either way. Comparing this to the ROG Ally, which also has 16GB of RAM, but it has the Z1E chipset, the Z1E chipset actually really didn't give the Ally a huge edge, also when you consider that the Legion Go S has to power a higher resolution screen. The ROG Ally averaged 43.5 FPS in Cyberpunk. So while the Ally and the Legion Go S don't have the exact same specs, I think it goes to show that the Z2 Go can hold its own when it comes to potential performance. So how is actually gaming on the Legion Go S? I think it comes down to, the Legion Go S is good. It's not going to start doing some crazy things you've never seen a handheld do before, but it can keep up with competition out there and with its higher res 1200p screen. I figured let's start with possible disappointment and let's try out Spider-Man 2. It's worth pointing out that the PC port does seem pretty far from being optimized, and it's been going in and out of SteamOS certification, so while it boots up and we can get into a game, it's got pretty bad performance. I tried to tweak settings as much as I could, but the game ranged from looking like an oil painting to just straight up crashing. On the side of games that have been around forever, I actually had a ton of fun just playing Portal. I set the game to a lower TDP and still managed to pull through with 120 frames pretty consistently, and it's just a fun handheld experience. I feel like Portal is kind of like my PC version of Tetris. It's an easy game to just sink some time in and forget that I'm working on this video. Doom Eternal hit just right on the Legion Go S. I've been playing a lot of Doom Dark Ages, but since that's through PC Game Pass, it's not an option here. Doom Eternal runs really well here though. I had the settings at high and was consistently getting above 60 FPS. I'm sure you could lower the settings to get more frames, but I thought that high graphics settings looked pretty nice. A game that I've been really into lately is Dead Zone Rogue. It's a roguelike FPS co-op game. I did get the key sent over to me, and the game is still in early access, but I'm fully invested in this game. I think I have like over 30 hours in it. I've been recommending it to everyone. The game is in early access, so of course the results can change over time, but as it currently stands, the game runs really well. Star Wars Outlaws is a game that is not supported on Steam Deck, and even though I've tried workarounds, I could just never get it up and running fully. So my expectations, despite the game being listed as SteamOS verified, were pretty low. The same problems I have on Steam Deck happens here on the Legion Go S as well. The game boots and just never detects a controller. There are Steam controller profiles to map the keyboard bindings to a controller, but it's honestly just not playable. When we get into a game, at the lowest settings, it barely hits 30 frames, so I really wouldn't think that this game actually deserves a SteamOS verification. I wanted to see how the Legion Go S would handle lower powered games. Can we turn the TDP down and get crazy good battery? Balatro is not a very demanding title, so if we set the game to 5 watts, we get some pretty high frame rates and we can still get 6 to 8 hours of battery life off a full charge. And really, what's more important than Balatro time as a battery benchmark? Emulation is obviously a big draw to these handheld gaming PCs, and the Legion Go S pulls through as some of the best emulation that I've experienced. Not just because it plays the games at the right frame rate, but because we just have such a perfect pairing of hardware and software. We have the hardware for some pretty powerful emulation performance, like Xbox 360, which while I don't think it's going to play every game, the Simpsons game runs really well. There are some hiccups every once in a while, but I'd say it's pretty playable. Or take a look at GameCube, which just boots right into F-Zero and at a perfect 60 FPS. And then there's also Wii U, which when I booted up Wind Waker, looked amazing on this 1200p screen. And this was all a fantastic experience because, yes, it all performed great, but also because I used EmuDeck to get my emulation started on my Legion Go S. The setup is dead simple, just like the rest of SteamOS. It just works. The setup asks you some basic questions, takes you right to your ROMs folder, you drop your games in, you start up Emulation Station, and just boot into any game that you've just loaded. The one caveat that I found is that since I assume EmuDeck isn't quite tailored specifically for the Legion Go S yet, the GameCube controller had to be remapped, but I'd say that's a pretty minor thing. If you are interested in more extensive emulation testing, let me know down in the comments. As a handheld, the Legion Go S I think turns out to be pretty impressive, and to be honest, that's not what I was expecting. When I took a look at Spider-Man 2 at first and it just didn't load up, I felt like maybe Lenovo just wasn't going to get this device right. And sure, there's going to be compatibility issues here and there, that's to be expected on new devices. But I think Valve has a good track record with Steam Deck support, so I'm entrusting Valve and Lenovo to keep working together on this device to keep increasing its optimizations. I feel like you can summarize this device as, it's definitely better than a Steam Deck with a much more impressive display. It's not quite a generational leap, but it's a pretty big leap, like maybe it's like a Steam Deck 1.9. The 1200p screen compared to 800p on Steam Deck is really quite a difference, especially on an 8-inch screen. The device itself is incredibly comfortable. And I have to admit, I walked into the Legion Go S expecting to really dislike this thing. Why get this more expensive, slightly better spec'd device instead of a Steam Deck? Well, I think that the answer is that this is a great option to live alongside Steam Deck. Steam Deck is just a different form factor from the Legion Go S. And the best part about both choices is SteamOS. It's by far the selling point of either. And the fact that the Legion Go S is the first of what will hopefully be many more SteamOS devices on the market, I think it's pretty awesome to see a non-Windows handheld gaming PC available through Best Buy. We really are in the year of the handheld gaming PC, and I see things only going up from here. So would I recommend the Legion Go S? Yeah, I absolutely think it's something worth considering. I think there's no reason not to consider this 16GB model or even the more expensive Z1 Extreme 32GB model. While I didn't get hands-on with that version, we already know that the Z1 Extreme with more RAM can do great things from the Ally X. I think there's a pretty great range of SteamOS devices on the market right now. From $399 for the LCD Steam Deck through $730 for the 32GB Z1E Legion Go S. Even better, if this video is out in time and you act fast, you can just go ahead and pick up the more powerful Z1E for $600. And that's a truly killer deal, as long as you don't mind installing SteamOS yourself, since that one on sale comes with Windows 11 pre-installed. But those are just my thoughts. What do you think of the first official non-Valve SteamOS handheld? Are you considering picking one up? Do you have another device that you prefer? Are you sticking with Bazzite maybe? Let me know your thoughts down in the comments. We're coming up on Switch 2 week, and I've got a bunch of Switch 2 content that I think you're going to enjoy, so make sure you're subscribed. And thanks for watching. For me right now, it's back to Portal. You know, I bought this game when the Orange Box came out. This is like my first experience with Steam. I got the Orange Box on disc and loved Portal, played through so much of it, and I think I got to like the last level, and I just stopped playing it. I don't know why. So I think I'm finally going to finish Portal. I'm like halfway through the game at least from playing it on the Legion Go S, and that's what I'm going to do. Just back to Portal.